Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Strength in the Numbers. Our guest mentor this week is Anuj Vij, and previously Anuj has shared with us his rather diverse and rich experiences from having an international career spanning nearly 3 decades across 3 continents. And having had such a long-standing career, Anuj has been able to reflect and piece together how finance has changed in the meantime, but also the emerging opportunities where we can even become more relevant, more important, and add even more value to the business. And it's amazing some of the things Anuj goes into that he's doing now that he could probably never have imagined doing 5-10 years ago, or even when he started his career. So look, on this episode, Anuj describes the key to how finance can become more involved, where we're perhaps not as involved yet. Also, why the quote, "we should be afraid of an accountant who can sell," is very important today. And also, he shares an unprecedented opportunity for finance on how we can rethink what we're doing to even become more relevant and add more value to the business. As always, the timestamp show notes can be found on our website at sitnshow.com/podcast/060. So without further ado, over to Anuj and the show. And you probably found your way into some forward-looking companies there. I know that's not necessarily the case for all of our audience. Like in terms of, do you feel we can sort of maybe manufacture more the finance importance, or how could we go about, like in your mind, making finance more important if some companies it's not as further along the journey as it probably should be nowadays?
That's a good point, and I think the key to that is basically understanding the business, right? Finance is always, at times, I think it's about what's at the front end or the back end. If you think that finance is going to be at the back end always, then it is not going to work. I think finance leaders and finance professionals really need to understand the business drivers, and because they have the added advantage, right? Of I think down the road in one of your things you asked me, like, which is your favorite book, right? One of my things that has always been was the thing that what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. And one of those things in his book, there's a quote he says, like, "I'm always afraid of an accountant who can sell," because if he's sitting on that
That's
table,
brilliant.
Most people, when they're talking about a business, right, they're just worried about one driver or the other, right? Whether it is increasing market share, increasing product, this thing. If you have a finance professional, when they sits on the table, can actually take in many more parameters at the same time, right? He can calculate and bring into the aspect that, okay, fine, we're growing market share, but if our overall profitability declines, then it's not really worth it, right? Or if we are going to do that, if it's a strategic move, what timeline are we placing on it? So again, understanding the business is key. So when I came into Chevron as well, right, the after my initial compliance job, where I was basically similarly, when I was talking to lawyers all the time, I spent time studying the acts, studying the language, studying the what I was responsible for, so that when I would talk to them, I would have that basis, that have a common ground because my key customers were lawyers. Now, when I moved into the NMA, the Nigeria and Africa role, where I was working with a whole bunch of geologists and engineers, right? I took the effort. I spent the time and effort to take courses in geology 101, engineering 101, right? So that when I'm sitting at a table and we are discussing, when you're discussing for example, uh, you know, drilling on a certain thing, and people are throwing, whether there is a on this point it is a correct capture or not, a seismic shoot, and how they are going to be able to use that. If you don't understand that, and you don't understand what value those people are trying to drive, you cannot be seen as a valued business partner, right? You have to earn the trust, right? You have to be able to communicate at the same level, right? And you need to understand what the business driver is for whichever group that you are servicing. At the end of the day, finance is still a service, right? That we are providing to the overall organization. But if you don't understand what the business drivers are for that organization, you cannot be good at providing that service.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And look, appreciate you sharing those real experiences, Anuj, of where it's happened for you. And I think sometimes we use that excuse as the business doesn't get it. I think we need to take some ownership. Like, we've got these great technical training to be able to deconstruct a business. So we do have the skills to figure out what the drivers are, but we then need to probably invest a bit more effort into learning the language of the business. I mean, even if like yourself, working multinationally, I've gone away and I've learned new languages just so I have a curiosity about their culture, how to interact with people, and we could share many stories about that as well. But it's actually been able to, how do you say, take that technical understanding and also understanding the language of business, so we can translate that into something that's valuable for the consumers in the business. It's the service, as you said. So I think the ownership's on us to be able to go and drive that through. So I really appreciate you sharing that practical advice for our audience, Anuj. I suppose in terms of where you are now, in terms of what you're working on and seeing, what's exciting you most about accounting and finance at the moment?
I think the advent of big data and software as a service is what really excites me now. Because see, accountants and we were always limited by the limitations of things like Excel and financial systems being kind of really uh, kind of static, right? They were not dynamic. The ability to so imagine, right, how things used to work. Like 2 years ago, when somebody wanted to look at a let's say an initiative, right, to drive, let's say, a new product or a new initiative that someone's trying to launch, they would send an email or call a meeting uh, to a call a meeting and then say, you know what, we need to get information for this particular, let's say, this particular market. And then somebody would go and get the data out from the financial system, put it into Excel, load it into PowerPoint, and then have a presentation. And then the whole process would be like, it would take roughly a week or so. And it's a right. But I think there is a huge opportunity right now, is that, for example, and it's all about rethinking the way you actually do business, right? So creating, things like Power BI, Office 365, and Microsoft Teams
Mhm.
plus Power Pivot have actually given a lot of computing power directly in the
Yes.
hands of finance people. Now, for example, we did, when I was in operations, when I came into operations, I was like, oh my God, every time I'm sitting and doing, everyone asks me questions about the same data every single time, and I have to pull it every single time and do this. This is ridiculous. So I ended up implementing a whole, well, we set up that as configured partly on SQL Server and running off Microsoft Azure and Power BI. But we so first was standardizing the data set, right? What people normally look at, and then pulling all that data into easy to use dashboards that everybody can access. So instead of now, when my frontline manager needs to look at a well performance, he doesn't need to send me an email or give me a call. He will just open up the my dashboard on his mobile or on his computer, and he can see all the performance of that particular well going back till the time that well started. So the ability to aggregate and present data more fluently, quickly, and seamlessly is an opportunity that is really exciting. And then the point is now, you know, earlier on to execute something like that, you needed IT people,
Yeah,
right? You would need specialized skills in programming.
definitely.
You would need all sorts of stuff that, which was, either you upgrade your skills or you bring in someone else, which is not that easy in any organization, because then you're taking you're looking at putting resources, time, effort, money, business case scenarios. But the the capability that the advent of these technologies has put in the hands of a finance person is unprecedented, right? It is with very little IT involvement, I can actually do far more today than was I could even conceive, a year ago, a year or two ago,
Yeah,
before we moved on to these platforms. So, big data and the ability for, to predict trends, look at trends, and for example, in our in this particular operations role, with the right data being made available to the right people, we've been able to really improve profitability and drive down our operational costs, like in so many ways possible. And what it has resulted is that there is a shift in the mindset. So the mindset shift is the fact that, from where earlier on it was just one driver after the other that was kind of driving decisions, which was like, could have been production, could have been reserves, could have been, you know, better design or more
hmm
efficiency, reliability. But now there is an element of being able to compare profitability along with it, right? So everyone is now getting into a cost mindset as well. So fine, we are going to be doing this, but what is it going to give us? Are we getting good returns for our investment? So even small decisions are being driven with that mindset. And that cultural change in the whole organization is what is really exciting me now. That, with finance playing a starring role in almost everything. And it has now, the way for us, it has even transformed the way IT used to work now. And earlier on, now
Okay.
even IT is now as a part of a whole, the main operations team. So you've got finance, you've got IT, and you've got all the operations people now really working together to drive towards a common goal. So which that cultural change is the most exciting thing for me now.
Yeah, I really did enjoy how you summarized it because as you were speaking, I was sort of feel like living my own journey in terms of getting it to that state. And I remember being at university learning SQL. So that's what's that going to be useful for? Well, it's great now to be able to set up the servers and also for the business to serve themselves with information. In effect, taking out a load of traditional finance workloads, allowing us to then use our business partnering skills to go and find more avenues to drive value for the business. I mean, it's never been a more exciting time. And thing is, we have the skills if we choose to embrace it to go and execute and get that seat at the table. Traditionally, so we have the opportunity to be seen not just as back office, but actually at a seat at the decision making table and helping the business drive value. And I think you've really summarized how to get there very well, Anuj. So thank you for doing that. And I just want to fire some quick questions at you as well,
Hmm.
in terms of as we sort of bring our conversation to a close. But in terms of advice, whether it be personal advice or business advice, what's been the best bit of advice you've ever received in your life?
The best advice that I ever received in life was, from a finance perspective, was, go and work in the field, right? Watch
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
Yeah.
Then only, you'll be able to be a. So, for example, I learned that in, well, in my first job, we were short of staff so badly that we were like 30-40% understaffed, that everyone was
That's
caught
bad.
in the in the opening phase, right? It's like that. Like the scale up had not happened, but everyone was called upon to do everything. But in that aspect, learning every aspect of the business, right, really helped. Be you knew everything that was going on, right, and you could make decisions accordingly. Similarly, in when we went to Maersk, one of my bosses gave me a really good advice. He says, you know what, forget about everything else. When you join, go with the operations manager and see an operation happen on the docks.
Definitely.
Really valuable lesson, because when we went and when I went there, I walked up the ship up and down, watched the whole unloading, loading operation, and I exactly knew where everything was when I looked at my financials, because then everything else fell into place.
To go out, Anuj, I couldn't agree with it more. From my own experience, you learn so much. You can actually see the numbers come to life in
Yes,
terms of the activities driving the numbers. It's so, and also get to meet people, and if you get a chance to speak to people involved, figure out where there's perhaps some opportunities on the ground to add value, and take them back
absolutely.
and see how we can do it. So, great advice. So, in terms of going along with that theme, in terms of any resources you could recommend our listeners, would you be able to maybe suggest a book they go follow up on?
I still think what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School is one of the cheapest resources to actually gain. Really, I mean, understanding the marketing and selling side of things is super critical for a finance person as well.
Yeah, I really like the expression earlier. If you could have an accountant that could sell, and I know you explained it. So yeah, it seems. I mean, I completely agree. Probably that's why I started in my career as a salesperson, and unknowingly, that's probably benefited my accounting career no end. So yeah, maybe I've done it the wrong way around. Maybe it would have been easier to be an accountant first, then go selling. I don't know. So no, so thanks for that, Anuj. Anuj, you've seen a lot during your career. Maybe what would be some trends that we should be mindful of in finance when it comes to the impending future?
Yeah, absolutely. And see, one of the other scary things that is happening, and this is something which I'm just sharing with you, but in large organizations, right, with so the combination of things like shared service centers,
Yes.
distributed kind of work processes, highly segmented work processes,
Oh,
uh, and then you couple that with the upcoming staff turnover of people retiring.
yeah.
The biggest issue that now is staring companies right in the face is that the number of people in a company who understand the end to end of all the financial processes is now extremely limited.
Yes.
And the the issue that comes up is that sooner or later, no matter how much RPA you do, how much everything else you do with big ERP systems, highly complex processes, businesses change, right? Those processes become redundant and they will fail. But if someone doesn't understand the linkages of where each process connects and how to solve problems down the road, you're going to be looking at major issues cropping up in terms
Yes.
of work breakdowns and maybe even major financial reporting issues down the road.
Yeah, I that's why I love
Right.
talking with folks like yourself, and who's like, no one's really saying that, but we see it, and those people with the gut feel. Like I think we've been sort of through some accelerated learning given our experiences. Maybe at the time we probably didn't appreciate it, but we've probably got a very good gut feel for these things.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of other people are saying that, and that's why I actually recruit people based on attitude and commerciality. I've hired salespeople, I've hired people from HR, I've hired people from IT. It doesn't always necessarily be finance people. It's about the team we build that understands those processes, because it's the team comes together. Um, I've embraced the robotic process automation to a degree, but I'm skeptical in a way because, like yourself, businesses change. Those processes become redundant. So you need to have people conversant with what the original intention was and how to adjust it,
Mm-hmm.
so we can steer course overall. So yeah, it's
With workforce that is on the edge of retirement,
Mhm.
and once those people leave, and the newer ERP systems get replaced, you're looking at, and then the newer people who are coming through the ranks, they have never seen the end to end.
oh,
They
there we
have
go.
never been exposed to that hardcore end to end process management that
Yeah.
is there, right, for finance. So if they have never seen it, they don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, Anuj, I think that's actually really concerning. For me, I mean, I don't really sense myself. In general, the feedback I'm getting from our audience is that our organizations could be perhaps doing more to address what the future structures of finance are going to look like. And, I think that probably explains a bit why so many of our profession are disengaged with working in larger companies. But in the defense of larger companies, they're still figuring this out for themselves. So it's thoughts like yourself, it's thought leaders like yourself that are really helping drive the conversation anyway, and at least putting it out there so we can start doing something about it. And I suppose, I really enjoyed reading some of your articles on LinkedIn. But should our audience wish to connect with you and find out more about you, where's the best place to connect with you at?
LinkedIn, that's the best
LinkedIn.
way.
That's the best
That's
way.
the best
I completely
way. Yeah.
agree. So News, look, you've been a great guest for us. Really fascinating career in terms of the journey you went on and all those experiences you were able to share. And I know our audience are going to benefit tremendously from all those insights, and also particularly what's exciting you now. I think the agenda that's happening with the technology supporting, enabling what we do, it really provides for a great future. And thanks to those sort of words of encouragement around that. So Anuj, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for having me, and look forward to it.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding, and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities, and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.